Welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. I'm so glad it's Friday, and I'm here by myself today. Unfortunately, Chris had a little accident with his zipper, but we wish him all the best, and we hope he recovers from that. It's just a tip, so I'm sure it'll be fine. I'll let you decide whether you think that's true or not. Agate is prone to those type of things, and he always ribs me a little bit when I don't appear on these shows, and life gets in the way. So I thought I'd do the same. So I'll leave it up to you whether you believe that little story or not. Hello to everybody on the chat. Obviously, I'm multitasking here, but I can see that it's already going off with people commenting. Hi to everybody on the chat. Happy Friday indeed. Reaction already from Anya there. Fantastic. So it may have happened. It might not. But hello to everyone on the chat, and thank you for joining us on Friday. Please, obviously, share this around. It's going to be a fantastic interview. We've got a great guest on tonight. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun. So grab yourself a beer, have a little sit down, obviously watch us, interact with us, and share us around, and we'll absolutely love that and love you for that. So without further ado, let's get on to the beer token book promotion. Now, we've been sponsored by Bison Beer for quite a few shows now, and their beer is absolutely fantastic. They do IPAs, lots of special brews as well, which you can get, and they really are at a decent price as well. I think it works out to about $3.75 for a can when you buy in bulk. So yeah, definitely check those out. The can, I can't remember the name of it, but the can with Lionel Richie on the front is a must try. It's absolutely as smooth as you like. It's amazing. And be careful, drink responsibly. So we're going to go and do tonight's beer token book promotion, and tonight's beer token book promotion is actually our guest's book. Now, this is normally the point in the show when I look up in the corner, so I'm going to do that. And yes, there it is. The book appears, but I also have a nice copy of it there as well. Look at that front cover. It's absolutely stunning. So yeah, look at that. It's almost looking like it's reflecting. Absolutely brilliant cover there. Great designer. And we'll talk to Rod about that, I'm sure, later. But yeah, so without further ado, let's obviously introduce tonight's guest. So go through that. Yeah, we've done that. Beer token, check. So tonight's guest is on the bottom of the screen there. It's just come up. I thought it was going to come up bigger, so let's get rid of Bison. Rod Reynolds is the author of 5 novels, including the Charlie Yates series and the standalone Blood Red City, and the forthcoming Blackreed Bay, which is here. We're going to talk about that later. His debut, The Dark Inside, was longlisted for the CWA New Blood Dagger. Now, that is some feat. And was followed by Black Night Falling in 2016 and Cold Desert Sky in 2018. So, obviously, if you're really interested in checking out Rod's work, he's got a nice little back catalogue growing there. So, you can definitely go and check that out on Amazon or your local independent. Obviously, support them because they are amazing. He's a lifelong Londoner, and in 2020, Arenda Books published his first novel set in his hometown, Blood Red City, which was a summer 2020 pick in the FT. Also, Rod previously worked in advertising as a multimedia, well, say multimedia, but we're all on across all platforms, I should imagine, a media buyer, and holds an MA in novel writing from the City University, London. So I'm really going to be interested in talking to him about that. Obviously, you guys know that I'm looking to do that myself at some point. So without further ado, let's get Rod on the screen and say hello to him. So, ladies and gentlemen, Rod Reynolds.
Hey, Chris. Hi, everyone.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us, Rod.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for you to spend your Friday evening with us and, spend your time chatting to us. So we can't wait to do that. I'm so glad everything went well in terms of the introduction there. When I've introduced a guest in the past, I accidentally not paused them, but muted them for a while. And I was like, oh my God, the sound's gone off. What's going on? So I'm glad that hasn't happened.
Seamless.
Yeah. The comments are coming in already. So brilliant. Keep doing that, guys. Obviously, keep chatting to us, keep chatting to Rod. And, share this around as well. Get the more the merrier on a Friday night. So, Rod, the first thing that we like to do when we get our guests on the show is just find out how writing came into their life. So, if we could start with that and just explain to us a little bit about how you became a writer, where the sort of passion come from, and then, we'll get into some other stuff.
Sure. So it's a bit of a strange one for me, to be honest. Always been a big reader, loved reading since I was a kid, got started the same way as probably everyone else, Edith Blyton and everything like that. And then kind of fell into my first kind of real adult books were like John Grisham books. I remember someone gave me a copy of the Pelican Brief, and that was it.
Nice.
Crime was my thing. I was kind of in. And so I'd always, as I said, I'd been a reader my whole life, but I'd never written anything since I left school. Never tried, never wanted to. It wasn't really something I'd ever really considered. It just wasn't something anyone that I knew did. I didn't know any writers. I didn't know anyone who'd ever written anything. It just wasn't for people like me. I was lucky to go to university. I got an office job, and that was it. And then I was really lucky that an old boss of mine at the time, he was kind of a mentor of mine as well. He was writing a book, and we got to chatting about it quite a lot. We shared a taste in crime fiction. He liked a lot of the same stuff as me, James Elroy, James Lee Burke, all those kind of guys.
Nice, yeah.
And we were chatting about it over a period of months and months and months, and always kind of saying, well, what's the point in trying to write a book? You'll never get through. It's impossible. The odds are so ridiculous. And it just kept circulating in my head. And he sort of said to me one day, well, look, someone's got to get published. Why couldn't it be you or me? And that just kind of stuck with me for a long time. I mean, I'm talking about this is over a period of 3 or 4 years while this was kind of percolating in my mind. So I was in advertising. That was, as I say, I was a media buyer. I'd been doing that 10 years by the time I left, and I probably spent 9.5 of those years looking for a way out of it. So suddenly, finally, I thought, okay, let's do something here. So I kind of I took a sort of sabbatical. I left my job, and I did like a distance learning course. In literally like basically like how to write anything, how to write English, where the full stops go, that kind of thing. But it was really useful, and you kind of worked through a few chapters of what I was writing with a kind of distance learning tutor, and it was great. And I made the classic mistake, all the mistakes you can make. I made them all at once at the same time. So I wrote a draft in 2.5 months. I mean, I loved it. I was working nonstop. Finished the draft, quick once over on an edit, changed a few bits here and there, sent it off to every agent I could find. I had the old ALF directory, if you're familiar with that, pre-internet. And I just literally went through, right, okay, yep, there's one, sent them all off paper copies. So obviously it was all, and of course got rejected by everyone. Which or just ignored, which is
sometimes is worse.
But a couple of them did say to me, look, this story doesn't work, but you can write. And if you carry on, we'd like to look at what you can write next. And so then kind of by this point, my year out of work was up. So it was kind of time to make a decision and figure out if this was going to be something I was going to pursue. So as usual, I kind of put it off. And real life kind of intervened, and I was back working full time and everything like that. And then it got to the point where I was like, I had a story in mind, which was based on a real life case that I'd done quite a lot of research into, more out of interest, with a vague idea to making a story out of it. And it got to the point where I was like, look, either you're going to do something with this or you just forget it. And so to force myself, I signed up for my master's degree at City. And I luckily enough got accepted onto the course, started that, I think this was 2012. So I started that a few months later. Because I had the book researched, I had everything in my head of what I wanted to do. I flew through it, and that was what became The Dark Inside. I was very lucky. I got picked up by an agent about halfway through the course because I'd finished the book already. I managed to get a publishing deal before I graduated. So I was quite lucky.
That went down well with everyone. Sorry guys, I'm halfway through. I've already done it.
I'll see you all later. I think I was lucky with timing more than anything. I knew what I wanted to do when I went into it. I had a lot of the stuff ready to go, and I was also racing against the birth of my first kid. So here's a real life deadline. You're going to get it done before this happens, regardless of when the course finishes. So sorry, that's quite a long-winded answer, but it's such a roundabout way that I've ended up into writing.
Yeah, no, I love that. Do you think you would have carried on if you wouldn't have been accepted onto that MA, or if you hadn't have thought about that in your mind? Because I know some people, when I've said, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing an MA," people go, "Oh, you don't need that." I'm like, well, I kind of want it though, because I want that support network and those strict deadlines to sort of help me focus. Was that the same sort of thing that you were thinking when you approached doing one?
That's exactly it. You've absolutely nailed it. I mean, I whether I would have gone on to write or not, I would say probably not, because I was at that point where I was like, I've been kind of dabbling with this for a long time, and I kind of need to either scratch the itch or just move on with my life. But the point I would make is what you said is exactly right. You've got to know why you're doing it, and my reason for doing it was not with an expectation of getting published. You know, no one was more surprised than me when I sort of started to move through the process, and it wasn't with an expectation of, you know, because I think I could be this brilliant writer. It was purely, I'd tried writing, I loved doing it, I wanted to get better at it, but I also wanted something to structure it and something to make me do it. And so I always say to people, you absolutely don't need an MA. There's no question in my mind, you don't need an MA. If you've got the talent and the dedication and you're willing to work at it and the perseverance, you absolutely don't need it. But if that is the thing that gives you that structure and that discipline, as you're talking about, then for me, that definitely worked. Definitely.
Yeah. So what made you then, with that first novel and the first idea, what made that different? Obviously, you talked about your love of writing coming from reading like John Grisham and reading crime. And obviously crime is one of them where it's so diverse and sort of like every original idea. I know they say every original idea is kind of like a redraft of something already before it anyway. But with crime, it's even, for me personally, it feels like it's more the case. Every time I think of a crime novel, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember reading something similar to that, or that's already been done. So why did that idea stick more than any of the others that you've had? And then once it did stick, how did you go about putting that to paper?
The idea stuck because I was just fascinated by the case itself. So the case is, The Dark Inside is based on the Texarkana Moonlight Murders, which took place in 1946 in Texarkana, which is on the border of Texas and Arkansas in the States. But there was just something about the murders that really, what actually happened in real life, that just really stuck with me. It was a masked guy attacking young couples parked up in lovers' lanes on these kind of date spots in this, what was quite a rough town, but also was a transit point for soldiers coming back from World War II. So even though this was February 46, the place was absolutely chock-a-block with soldiers coming back from Europe as they came through there to go on to the West. And so it's just this amazing melting pot of a town where this horrific set of crimes is taking place. And obviously it's unsolved. And that just stuck with me as like, man, there's a story there. That's a crime, that is a crime story. And around about the same sort of time, I'd been watching, in particular, if you're a fan of it, David Fincher's Zodiac film.
Oh yeah,
my favorite film.
Definitely, yeah.
Amazing film. And part of that, there is some similarities between the two cases and killers. Not to suggest they're linked, but and I think that visualization of it, and because that film was so good and it just stuck in my brain, some of the scenes, I was like, man, I'd love to take this story and make it as compelling and visual and powerful as that. As well as obviously I'd been reading Elroy for a number of years and desperately trying to write anything that could even approach the effect that had on me, you know, which obviously immediately lent itself to me trying to rip him off, which was terrible. But I kind of evolved past that, as I'm sure, you know, we all do with our heroes.
Yeah. So obviously writing your first novel and setting it in America, and then obviously you've revisited other parts of America as well throughout your career. So what is it about America in particular that, because obviously you could take that crime story essentially and you could probably put it into a UK based setting if you really wanted to, but what is it about America that you're drawn to as a writer? What do you think that is?
You know, I've answered this question, and probably every time I answer it, I'll give a different answer because I'm not entirely sure myself. There's certainly something about, I've been fascinated with America since I was a kid. There's certainly something about, I just naturally have a preference for American crime books, which is not, you know, I've got thousands of brilliant British and European authors I love as well, but for some reason I've just always naturally gravitated that way. As I mentioned, Elroy, my big hero, James Lee Burke, obviously the greats, Chandler, people like that. And just that whole kind of tradition, that noir tradition, has always kind of inspired me, and it's what I like to read, and it's what excites me. At the same time, I talk about, I was a kid growing up in the 80s, and I talk about, if you turn on the telly when 1986, 6-year-old Rod sitting there, and there's 4 channels, and on one channel you've got EastEnders with a woman making a pot of tea, and she takes the hat off her head and puts it on the teapot, and then you flick over and you've got the intro to the A-Team, and you've got palm trees and girls in bikinis and machine guns and cyborgs. I'm like, for me, there was no question which was just kind of a more of a natural draw. So there's those couple of things. I think, to your point, you could take any crime story from America and set it in the UK to some extent, but there are certain things about America that obviously it's quite an unusual place in a lot of ways. Certainly the wide open spaces, certainly the culture, the maybe not as pronounced back then, but the gun, the kind of fetishization of guns and the prominence of how many people hold guns. So all those kind of things they're not unique to America, but they're certainly more pronounced over there, I think. And I do think there's a certain difference, in my mind at least, as to how you can play those stories out then. Yeah,
I mean, obviously this is tying us in nicely to the book, obviously, that we've got just above your head in the top corner. So with Blackberry Bay, obviously you have gone back to America from obviously writing a novel based in London. So for those who are watching now that maybe don't know what it's about, can you tell us just briefly what it's about before we go into it?
Yeah, sure. So Blackberry Bay is also based very loosely on a real life case, but set in the present day on Long Island. And the premise of the book is that Detective Casey Wray, who is a detective with the Hampstead County Police Department, receives a phone call in the middle of the night from a young woman who is in an exclusive oceanfront community and claims that someone is chasing her and trying to kill her. And this young woman is clearly, obviously, very, very distressed. And then the phone call kind of goes dead. And when Casey goes to investigate the next morning, it would appear that this is a young woman who's had some kind of domestic incident with her partner or boyfriend, and it's just kind of got out of hand. And it seems like it's going to be a big waste of everyone's time. But then there's inconsistencies start coming up in the stories. Different witnesses are saying different things, and there's been no sight of her. And very quickly, it starts to become apparent that there's more to this young woman's disappearance than a simple domestic. And that actually there's a lot more going on in this community than anyone is willing to kind of talk about. And I can't really go further than that without doing spoilers.
Yeah. No, that's fine. So one thing that a lot of people have said about Casey is just how strong she is as a main character. So how did she come about, or what was the process there with Casey, and why did you want to write from her perspective?
So I've sort of said this before. She is the first time I've written a straight up hero, like an actual genuine goodie. She is coming from all the right places, morally, mentally. She's not perfect by any means. She's certainly not Superwoman, but she's just an all-round good guy. All my other books, certainly my first 3 books, the Charlie Yates books, Charlie's a very flawed protagonist for various reasons. And then my 4th novel, Blood Red City, has dueling protagonists who are both neither of them are what you would call classic heroes. Casey she's a good guy. She wants to find the bad guys. She wants to solve crimes. And she wants to go home at the end of the day and watch telly. So that was the kind of starting point. But then you've got to then make that interesting, obviously. And so to do that, she comes from a place that I hope is very relatable, which is that she's low on self-confidence. She doesn't necessarily, she believes she's out of her depth, that she's been promoted above her capabilities. She's not, in any way physically imposing, or, she's not got some girl with a dragon tattoo kind of super skills or anything like that. She's just a woman trying to do a job. And so I've tried to make her relatable. I've tried to make her funny. Tried to give her a bit of banter with her colleagues and just kind of bouncing off people, and hoping that will gets the reader behind her. And it seems to, people seem to be connecting with her, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that came across for me is with Michael Connelly's character. He's done a character recently, Renee Bollard. I don't know if I'm saying her surname correctly. I think I am. But she is very similar to Casey in the respects that like you said, you know, her morals are in the right place, her lack of confidence. And I think people who enjoy Michael Connelly will definitely enjoy this book. Would you say that's a fair comparison in terms of, like, obviously, I think with a lot of crime fiction readers, once they read one, for example, by an author, and they're like, yeah, that was great, they will read the entire back catalogue of them. So I've seen this come up more than once in terms of the links between yourself and Michael Connelly. Do you think, like, do you read other writers' work and then sort of like say, oh, I like what they've done, I could maybe go similar ways with storylines and stuff like that? Or do you just write the book that comes to your mind, and it just so happens that there are some crossovers because obviously it's set in the same genre?
I mean, first of all, I'm never going to turn down a comparison to Michael Connelly. I'll take that all day, so thank you. Interestingly, he's one author I haven't read a huge amount of, actually. I've read a few of the early Bosch books, but I haven't got to a lot of his later stuff, which I really should, because I love the films. Like Lincoln Lawyer is one of my favourite films, and his latest couple. But I haven't read the ones that you mentioned, René Bollard. But there's no question that other authors have an influence on you, whether it's kind of knowingly or not. I don't actively try and sort of go after other people's storylines or stories that they've done, but certainly themes or types of characters. Quite often I'll think, right, I'd love my character to be a little bit of this guy over here, a little bit of that one there, a little bit of this one, as well as obviously drawing from real life and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a difficult question to answer, because I think we're all, as you said at the start, there's 7 plots in fiction, as so the cliche goes. So we're all trying to make something new out of something old, and I think, to my mind, the only way you can do that is with interesting characters. Yes, the plot has to be good. In crime, you can't get away with not having a good plot, and it's got to make sense, and it's got to be compelling. But I always think, I go back to, if the characters are good enough, then you'll read them doing anything. So I think that's probably where I try and differentiate it, or at least make it my own, put my own spin on those kind of stories and those kind of settings. Because you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't remake the serial killer story. It just can't be done.
Yeah. So with that, then, in terms of, obviously, like, everyone knows if they pick up a detective fiction novel, they're going to get certain elements in there that they're kind of expecting. So obviously, once you've got a solid main character as your detective, what's the process like in terms of going about writing the story and making it, interesting and original in that way? How do you plot that? So obviously, I'm thinking from a writer's perspective, maybe you've got certain things that you want to do with Casey in that novel, in terms of, if you want to turn it into a series, and maybe, show us a little bit in this first book, and then maybe you're going to reveal more further down the line about her history and her past and stuff like that. How do you sort of manage that as a writer in terms of what to include and when?
That's a really good question. It's quite instinctive for me. I've always said, I've recently started saying I'm a reluctant planner. My first few books, I didn't really plan at all. I was very much a pantser. But with each book, I've kind of seen the benefits of planning a bit more. And don't get me wrong, I'm nowhere near the level of some people who have masterful planning abilities and literally have got everything down. That's not me. But I'll always start with like a 1 or 2 page synopsis that I'll probably depart from within the first chapter. It's already veered off like that. But I've got my A, B, C, D, E, F. And if I end up taking a different route to get to F, that's fine. And if it turns out that the destination is actually PQR, that's fine as well. But I've got something, because I've found before I've written myself into dead ends, and it just doesn't work. At the same time, I try not to plan too much at the start, because I do find that if I don't know exactly how I'm going to get there, that does spur quite a lot of creativity. And sometimes I will write myself into a dead end, because then I've got to find a way to get out of it. And if I can't do that convincingly, then I've got to either replot. But if I can do it, then obviously it's it can make it for a good twist, or it can make for a good way to drive the story on. Because if I don't know where it's going to go specifically, say from C to D, how I'm going to get there, that if I can surprise myself with that, then hopefully I can surprise the reader. And then obviously when you go back and edit, you can start to put in the kind of foreshadowing and stuff. With regards to your question about the character and how much to put in, again, I think it's a little bit instinctive. A little bit of it comes certainly through the editing process. So certainly talking to Karen, who my editor at Render Books, or one of my editors, she was very helpful in guiding me with how much kind of backstory to put in, how much to draw out, how much to keep back. So I think it's a judgment call, and I think as you know yourself, once you start putting pen to paper, you start to get a feel for what needs to be there for the story and what just feels like padding, if you like.
Yeah. I love that. Love the whole like process that you've got there when you're researching. And obviously I think a lot of writers, when they're writing a novel on, they've started on, and they're obviously researching for maybe little ideas, especially a crime novel as well. If you've got, a killer and how they do it, do you ever find yourself going, oh, that's a great idea, like that's brilliant? And how do you sort of filter through those ideas and decide what goes in? And do you sort of like keep a log or a track of like great nuggets of true crime that maybe could inspire future stories?
Do I keep a log? Not really, if I'm honest, because the good ideas stick. So this one, I first read about this case, the real life case, when I was researching The Dark Inside. So that's 2011, somewhere around there. And it's been sitting in my head for, near enough 10 years, knocking around there. And I find that if a case stays with me that long, even in the back of my mind, then I know I'll get to it. And if I forget it, then I forget it. Or if I don't come across it again, or I don't seek it out again, then it wasn't there. In terms of what do I put in, when you were asking about what do I put in about ideas from true crime for like how the murders were carried out, do you mean that kind of thing?
Yeah. So like, obviously if you've got certain scenes and you think, I'm going to write this scene where this happens with the serial killer or the killer, and I really like that idea or that technique, maybe even so. Okay. Like, how do you decide what goes in for that particular character, and then what could be used for somebody else, maybe?
Man, that's a really good question. I'm not. I always said I would never write a procedural because it's too difficult, and I'm not really that interested in police procedure. So here's my first police procedural. It's also got a prologue, which I said I'd never do. So I'm obviously just fooling myself. And one of the reasons I steered away from procedurals was because, as I said, I'm not, as a reader, so interested in that side of things, and I don't necessarily have the expertise. So I don't tend to go into a great amount of detail. Also, I tend to find, I'm a believer that stuff is kind of better off the page. It's left to the reader's imagination. Yeah. So I don't go into too much detail about the mechanics of the murders and things like that. And I've certainly never written like a morgue scene where I have to then explain what was done and why. So I guess those decisions don't really have to be made too much for me. It's more about, I guess, the mechanics of the murder and things like that are, and what the killer was thinking have to serve the plot and the characterization, I think. In the sense that in this book, I wanted the murders to happen in a certain place and for a certain reason. And that is entirely explained by the character's motivations and therefore the plot. And I think that's probably the common theme throughout my books. The murders happen for the reasons that I need them to happen, for the characterization and for the plot, not because I think, oh, that's a particularly grisly or inventive way to kill someone, if you like. Yeah.
I could carry on all night, but I've just realized that we're almost halfway through the show, so I better get some staple questions. Yes, some staple questions in. One of the staple questions that we have on the show is if you could take anybody's character and make that character your own and have a go at writing that character, putting them in any setting, whether it be a completely new story with their existing world or bringing them into your own, which character would you choose and why?
Oh, that's a great question. I've got an answer straight away as well, but I'm worried if I take him, I'll mess him up. Okay, I couldn't do him justice. So the one I'll go with is Cletus Purcell. If you've ever read the James Lee Burke's Robber Show novels.
No, I haven't.
So the main hero is a police detective / private investigator, Dave Robichaux, who's fine, but he's a little bit prissy for me. But his kind of best mate / partner in investigation / crime is a fellow called Cletus Purcell, who is described as having a face like boiled pigskin. And Cleet is a brilliant character. He's a drunk. He's from an entirely broken home. He's a Vietnam veteran with very clear PTSD, or whatever it would be classified as in those days. Falls in and out of terribly toxic relationships with women non-stop. Drives an open top Cadillac, is drunk most of the time, wears Hawaiian shirts open to the navel, as tough as nails, not afraid of anything except maybe himself and his own emotions and his own nightmares. But as I talked about earlier, his moral compass is absolutely straight and true. He will never let his friend Dave down. He'll never, he's always got his back. And he's just funny. Like, he's just really funny. So I'd love to write the genius of the books is that James Lee Burke knows to just drop him in. You don't get too much of him. I think he knows he's the star of the show in a way. So you only get little tasters of him. So it would be a hell of a thing if you could write a whole book/series with Cleet, because if you haven't read him, I'd seek him out. The Neon Rain is the start of the series. It's fantastic.
Lovely. I'm definitely going to put that on the to be read list. The second question that we've got that is loosely linked to that is, if you could change the ending to anything. Now, this can be books, this can be TV, this can be film. What would you change the ending to, and what would you change it to?
Oh man, you put me on the spot here tonight, Chris. Oh man, that's really hard, because I can only I sort of keep perfect endings in mind, and there's so many perfect endings. Can I come back to that one? Let me have a think.
Yeah, come back to that one.
I'll think about that.
This one may be harder though. I'm not gonna lie. So
I feel like I'm failing the good writer exam here.
No. We're just trying to be a little bit out there with the questions that maybe people haven't been asked before. So this one you might appreciate as a crime writer. You have to resurrect an author, and part of that resurrection is you get to write a novel with them, which is great. But also part of that agreement is that you then have to kill them. So who are you resurrecting, and how are you going to kill them?
Oh man. So my first thought there was when you said the first part of the question was Hemingway, because I thought, I could sit down in the Florida Keys drinking rum all day and writing books. That would be good. But if he was tough. He was a boxer and all that. So I'm not going to try and kill Hemingway. He'd probably kill me first. So it's probably a cliche, but I guess I'd have to go with Big Ray Chandler.
We've never had that before, surprisingly.
No, okay.
No, yeah.
I mean, he's the godfather of this whole thing. I mean, he would give credit probably to Dashiell Hammett and a few others around that time, but I think it was him that certainly he established the tropes and the everything that we're still working within today. Anyone who writes kind of noirish fiction. And he was a hell of a guy. He lived in the UK, lived in the States, screenwriting, Hollywood in the golden age. He's seen some things. How would I kill him? I mean, he was a drunk as well, so I guess maybe just give him enough booze to let him drink himself to death, and just see if I can get some good stories out of him before he goes.
Before he goes to sit there with a pen, just keep drinking. Yeah, I love that. That's a great answer.
Keep talking, Ray.
Yeah. Again, this is a little bit morbid, but we do like our morbid questions.
I've just killed Ray Chandler. I mean, I
I
feel like I've got any lines that are left. So
so this one is, you're on your deathbed and you're looking back at your writing career. What would you be happy with? What success? What does it look like to you?
I've got a really corny answer and I don't know whether to give it. 4 of my 5 books are dedicated to my daughters. I've only got 2 daughters, but I'd dedicate 2 each for reasons I'll explain another time. So in some ways, I feel like if I never do anything else in writing, it doesn't matter, because that's there and that will always be there. And they're already at an age where they're just about old enough to appreciate that. And that's kind of cool. Obviously, I'd love millions and millions of pounds and TV and film adaptations, but that's not what motivates me. Truthfully, I think if I was looking back and I felt like I had the respect of my peers and the writers that came after, I would definitely be satisfied with that. That probably does sound like I'm trying to take the high road, but I'm honestly not.
No, that's a great answer. Yeah,
I think if you had in any business you're in, if you've got the respect of your colleagues and you feel like you've got that, then I think that's probably half the battle. So yeah, I'd take that. That'd do me.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. So we're going to move on to the second half of the show. Now we have a little quick advert in between. So if you want to fill up a glass or whatever, then you can do that.
I'm going to think of the answer that I owe you.
Yeah, think of the answer. It's only about a minute. And I'll play that. And then we'll get on to the second half of the show, which involves you guys. So obviously there's some of you watching at the moment. So think about the questions that you could get in, and we'll do the new family member in the second half. So just do this.
Hi guys, I'm here to talk about the amazing Pro Writing Aid and how I wish I had this software in my first 2 novels. I'm writing my 3rd at the moment and I really want to get it sent off to a real publisher, and this is going to make all the difference.
Yeah, if you want to get yourself agent ready, then this is definitely the tool for you. And it's got a really cool tool where you can compare your writing to somebody else's. So you can compare your work to Stephen King or Paul Hawkins. Yeah, really test yourself. Got it down. It's fun.
It is fantastic. And if you click on the link in the description of the podcast or the YouTube video, you will find a 20% discount affiliate link, which will help us out and help yourself out. So please check out Pro Writing Aid today.
Real. So that always freaks me out every time I see my face. We're going to the new family member now. And we got another short video for that. So here it is. Okay, and today's new family member is one I have just found because I forgot that I didn't prep this earlier. So Molly Grace follows the show, and she has 1,300 followers, and she's an aspiring author of young adult fantasy series, and she is into anthropology as well, so that's pretty cool. Also, she is currently studying at Durham University. So her Twitter handle, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I'm doing it anyway, is at Molly. So that's MOLLIE _ Grace, capital G for the Grace, and then underscore at the end. So if we could just send her a GIF. Now, Rod, that is up to you as to what we are sending. So what shall we send her?
I've got this one already. If you, I don't know if you can get onto the Twitter GIF machine. If you type in "man jumping into frozen swimming pool."
Yeah, let's have a look at that.
I've got it here for anyone who wants to. There we go.
Ooh, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. That's my. I always liken that to the finishing the first draft of a novel and then realizing you've got to do edits and copy edits.
Yeah. That is funny you should say that, actually, because she's currently during her second round of editing said on her Twitter.
Good luck with that.
Why can't I find the same one? What did you type in, Rod?
Frozen swimming pool, actually. Is all
frozen swimming pool.
That's on the Twitter one, though. I don't know if that's the same as yours.
Swimming pool. So obviously, if you're watching the show now, if you could send that GIF to Molly, just put that there. So Molly Grace, new family member, and then hashtag WCCS. If we can bombard her with those GIFs, that'd be a whole lot of fun, and hopefully she'll receive a little bit of a boost. And just know that obviously the show exists and this awesome writing community exists as well. So that'd be great if you guys could do that.
Can I just check? Was it _Grace_?
Yeah, _Grace_. So it's Molly with an I and an E, and then it was underscore, and then it was Grace _.
Great. All right, I'll ping that off when we're done.
Brill. So yeah, let's go on to the writing community question time. And again, we have another video. Okay, so send your questions in, guys. Obviously, this is the time that we're going to take questions directly from you. So if you've got any at the moment, just send them in. They are coming in now. So the first question is from Jody Cook. Hello, Jody. And this question is, what real-life crime has always stuck with you the most and why?
Oh, hi, Jody. That's a great question. Obviously, there's the two I've mentioned already, which informed my first and then most recent novels. But I guess probably the one that rattles around my head the most these days is the Zodiac case. I'm not by any means an expert, or certainly not one of these guys that knows every in and out of it. But I have a certain fascination with it just because there's so many inexplicable facets to it, the cryptography side of it and all that kind of stuff, and obviously the fact that it was unsolved and it went on for so long and it ruined so many lives. So yeah, that one probably is the one that fascinates me the most these days.
Have you read any of the books that like My Father, the Zodiac and stuff like that, where people say they know who he is and all that sort of stuff? And what do you think about them?
Yeah, I never did, because every time I went to pick one up, I'd read another article that said, no, this guy's a nutter.
He's lying. Don't read that book.
I think there's a fellow, Steve Hodel, who I think was one of the famous ones who said it, first came out and said it. And he went on to claim that his dad was also the Texarkana Phantom somehow 30 years earlier. So, I mean, this guy's just cornered the market on serial killer dads, it seems. No, I've never read any of the real life books. I'd like to read the one that Fincher based his movie on, which is by the San Francisco Chronicle reporter.
Yeah, I remember it was hilarious. I watched the Zodiac with my girlfriend, and when she didn't find out who it was at the end, she was very annoyed and was expected to find out. I was like, they can't just make it up. So yeah, that tickled me for quite a long time. But she enjoyed the film because, like you said, it's a great film. So the second question is from FJ Thomas, and it says, have you thought of one day venturing into a completely different genre?
Thanks for the question, FJ. Yeah, I don't know about completely different genre. I always think like I'm not well versed enough in, for example, sci-fi or anything like that. I would certainly go, and I have considered and sort of semi-worked out a book that was barely crime, much more sort of speculative and dealt with kind of shifting timelines and things like that, within one person's life and kind of that sort of sliding doors thing, but turning it into a crime novel. But I'll be honest, I lost myself in that one. So it's not, I wouldn't say never, and it's not something that I've put to bed in my mind yet. But I don't think I'd get as far as a different genre entirely. I think I'm always going to have some kind of crime going on.
Do you know, like you said before, obviously your two girls are now at the age where they appreciate that you're writing, and obviously you're an author and you've got these books. Have they shown us sort of like any interest in terms of writing themselves? And if they have, like, how are you sort of managing that? Because I'm guessing obviously they're quite young at the moment.
Yeah, not above and beyond what other kids do. I mean, they like to sort of sit down and make a book, which basically means draw a picture for the front cover and then lose interest, which I can absolutely relate to. But to be honest, it's just reading for them at the moment. I mean, they're only, they're not that old yet, so it's really encouraging them to read as much of anything they like. And I think I'm lucky that we've managed to pass that on to both of them. They both have got the bug, I think, to some extent. So I'd never push them towards being a writer, but if it's something they want to develop, then obviously I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, love that. The next question is from Anya, and the question is there any crime that you couldn't write about because it was too disturbing / dark? That's a good question.
That's a really good question. Thanks, Anya. So one of the reasons I spent 10 years sitting on this one was because the crimes first came to light in 2011, so it's much more recent than my previous works. And I wasn't sure if I could write about that sensitively and without sensationalizing it or potentially disrespecting anyone, either dead or alive, unintentionally, obviously.
Yeah.
So I steered away from that for a long time for that reason. I don't think there's anything that would be sort of too. I know. Actually, I say that. No, that's not true. I find it really hard since becoming a dad to sort of read or write anything about kids. You know, involving kids. You know, murders of children, things like that. So I think I'd probably steer away from that, at least for the moment. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are some depraved crimes in the world that I'm sure I wouldn't want to go anywhere near, but I haven't sort of sought them out or found them yet. But certainly, anything involving kids at the moment, I think I'd find really hard. Yeah,
I mean, we had M.W. Craven on Wednesday, and he told us a little idea that he had about a dead baby in a manger. And even though he didn't actually write it, it's still stuck with me, and I'm still thinking about it a few days later. So yeah, he's permanently scarred me from that little comment that he's put there.
That's funny, because Mike has permanently scarred a lot of people. He's permanently scarred me with a very brief, one-line story that he told me and a few other people one time. He's lived a life, Mike.
Yeah, he wasn't even trying to scar me, and he did.
No.
So the next question is from Halo Scott. Thank you. And this is there any fact or fiction you wish the criminals had gotten away with? Any crime in fact or fiction?
Any crime in fact or fiction? God. Thanks for the question. Let's go with Heat, another one of my favorite films. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but it's been out for 25 years, so you kind of had
you can spoil it, because again, loose link to Mike Craven. He actually mentioned the same film and the ending. So
okay, well then there you go. Let's have Robert De Niro's character get. Well, do I want that? I kind of want his character to get away with it, but the ending is basically perfect as far as I'm concerned. So I wouldn't want the ending to change, but I would kind of like him to get away with it. So I don't know.
Maybe some little twist in there, possibly. Yeah. I like it. Like that. Love that question as well.
It's a good
next question. This is another one from Jody, and it says, you can meet any serial killer, alive or dead, and you have only one question. Who and what do you ask?
Zodiac, what's your name?
What's your name? Do you think he'd just hand you a piece of paper with some symbols on it and go, work out? Leave. That would be so frustrating if we did.
Mate, can you imagine? I've just killed Raymond Carver, son. Don't mess with me. I'd be like, come on now. Red Chandler, rather, not Carver.
Yeah, or a real twist. Imagine if it was a female. And you got a completely different twist on that crime.
Yeah,
that'd be very interesting.
I'd love to know, because then I could obviously work it back and figure out what was going on there and why. And then you'd probably find out it was really uninteresting. Like, it was just a very mentally unwell person.
A postman or something on a daily. Not that being a postman would be uninteresting, but imagine that. Just delivering the Amazon packages. Just writing little symbols on it. Like, the next time I get an Amazon package now, I'm just going to look for the symbol. Like, he's still out there.
It hasn't even got an address on it. It's just got two circles and a smiley face. What the hell?
We're going to have to send that back. Love that.
All right, so I'd have to add a second question. Who are you, and why are you working for Amazon?
Why do you want to send Jeff Bezos to space? You shouldn't be working for him.
And obviously, question 3: where's my parcel?
Yeah, definitely. So the next question is from Joanne Paulson, and this question is how much research goes into your novels versus writing time, and do you have a stable of experts you rely on? Good question.
Thanks, Joanne. Research, I do put quite a lot of research in, because obviously all of my books are based on, to some extent or another, some element of real life. And I like to research that just because it's fun for me, really, if I'm honest. I mean, I went and visited Texarkana after I'd written the first draft of The Dark Inside. I went back to another town nearby where Black Knight Falling was set. Third one was set in LA and Vegas, which I'd been to a number of times. Obviously, the fourth one's set in London, so I bought myself a travel card and nipped up the tube for that one. So, yeah, quite a lot of research, depending on how much I need to know and obviously what I don't know already. but it is easy to get sucked into a rabbit hole there. I mean, as I'm sure you've probably said yourself, Chris, when you're trying to write something, the key is to sort of sprinkle it in and not overdo it. So I'm always mindful of not having more than I need, and I can always go back and figure out stuff I need. So yeah, it's probably more time it goes on the writing for me, because I probably take between 6 and 9 months to write a draft, whereas the research could be anywhere from probably 2 months to 6. But it's rarely sit down and just research. It's normally, right, I'm writing something else, but then I'm going to start thinking about the next project. So stable of experts, no, I don't have a stable of experts. Very lucky that there's other crime writers who can help with quite a lot of stuff. It's a very supportive community. You can ask questions and then people are normally willing to help. This was another departure for this one. As I mentioned, I wanted to steer away from procedurals because I didn't know a lot about police procedure, especially in the States, or at least I thought I knew enough to blag it. And within one chapter, I realized I didn't. And another crime writer very kindly put me in touch with a US police officer who he'd dealt with before, who was happy to consult on books. So I bombarded him with questions, and he very kindly read through a draft and he sent me back a manuscript that was marked up, and it was literally like, when you deal with editorial people in publishing, it's obviously a lot of it is very kid gloves. I love this. Let's just look at this. This was like, why is your detective doing that? Why has your detective not done this? Oh, at last, your detective has thought to do this. Oh, if your detective did this, he would get fired. I would fire him. And it was just all that kind of stuff. Like you're, one step away from you are an idiot. Stop. So, so that was. But he's a great guy, and he was really, really helpful. So that was my expert for that one.
Brilliant. I love that. So, what in your Google history then, from all the research that you've been doing, if anything was going to get you into trouble, what would it be?
Oh God. It'd probably be the amount of time I spend Googling and looking at the cricket scores and watching that when I'm supposed to be writing when the missus finds out. No, I don't know. I mean, God, best place to bury a body, Texarkana, Interstate 9, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously for this one, it's a real life crime that it happened 10 years ago. It's still a cold case now. And there's me like, if I was to bury another body in that particular area, where might I so maybe that, I don't know.
Yeah, brilliant, love that. So obviously the cover for Black Reed Bait is absolutely fantastic, and all your covers are actually really good. So how much of a say do you actually have in the cover, and what's that process like?
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I've had great covers all through, and a big shout out to Mark Swan, who does, I think, almost all the Arenda books, if not all of them, and did both of these. And sorry, back to front here. Is just a genius. He's the best in the business as far as I'm concerned. It's been great working with Arenda. Actually, they sent me, sort of half a dozen options to look at, mock-ups for both books. Quite different in sort of style and tone. It wasn't just sort of 6, this one with sort of 6 different, a house in a different place or something. It was totally different. A lot of work had gone into it. And then you kind of have a committee between, me, the editors at Arenda, the sales guys, and figure out. And luckily, in both cases so far, there's been a clear winner. So we're all in agreement straight away, as much as there were other strong options. So it's been great. It's been really good having that input on the process.
So a question that I forgot to ask before that we normally ask when we do the new family member is if you could recommend an author to somebody, I mean, it's hard to say this, but not that they're not well known, but that somebody might not know of. Because obviously we're all aware of like the Michael Connellys and stuff of this world, but is there an author that you think people should know about that maybe necessarily don't?
I would say Chris Whitaker, who wrote We Begin at the End, but I mean that's just gone supernova. So
he's gone like
and deservedly so. So I would have thought everyone is well aware of him by now. So I'm going to go with Tim Baker, who he was at Faber at the same time as me, and writes his first book was a novel called Fever City, which was loosely based in and around the kind of the aftermath of the Kennedy assassination, and is a brilliantly written book. And then his second book, City Without Stars, set in Mexico City, and kind of deals with those the kind of the drug wars and that kind of area, sort of veering towards kind of Don Winslow territory. And Tim is a phenomenal writer, just incredibly gifted, incredibly talented, writes beautifully. And I know he's working on a third novel now, which I'm going to, desperately trying to get my hands on when it's ready. So I mean, I could name 100 that are worthy of your time, but Tim's the one that comes to mind at the moment.
Brilliant. And then the final question, well, penultimate question, it's got one more question before this, before we wrap up, is we have a lot of authors that watch the show that are maybe just starting out, or they're quite new to writing, or they've been in writing for a little bit, but maybe looking for a little bit of advice. So what would your 3 tips be to anybody that's just starting out or starting out as an author?
That's a good one. So the practical tip I always give out is read your work aloud to yourself. I don't know if you've had that one before, but it's the best way to pick up on clunky dialogue, on stuff that just isn't working. You know, it's kind of embarrassing at the start when you first do it. And what I tend to do is put it on my Kindle and read it that way, because you see it differently. But if you can do that, or print it out if you have to, you just get, I don't know what the science is behind it, but you read it differently. And when you read it aloud to yourself, you hear it differently than when you're working on it.
Do you have a reading voice so it doesn't sound like you? Because I know when I read my work, I'm like, yes, this is a great day. I'm having a fantastic time. So it sounds better already.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, if I could read my own books in like James Earl Jones's voice or something, maybe I'd be more be keener on them. No, it's just my undulcet tones. So, what other advice would I give? I guess try and stay grounded, which is a weird one. I was quite lucky at the start of my career. As I say, I got quite a good deal, and I got quite a big push from Faber for my first book. Not stratospheric like some of these guys, but I guess I was spoiled because I didn't realize that was necessarily not how it always goes. And I did some big events early on. I was very lucky to do some big events very early in my career. And then you go through the other way. So I did some bookshop events where it was basically me and the people from my publishing house and the guy who owns a shop. And I've done plenty since of both, and I've been lucky on both sides of that. So it's definitely a career where you need perseverance, but you need to stay grounded and kind of be ready for those highs and lows, because you can go through periods where it feels like you've been, I've gone through times where it feels like no one even knows I'm writing, and the industry's kind of forgotten you and moved on. And then, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks or a couple of months back. My last book, Blood Red City, got longlisted for the Ian Fleming Steel Dagger. And I literally found out as I was parking the car in Tesco about to go and do some shopping. So, it's like you never know when the good news is going to come, and you never know when the good times are going to kind of slip away for a bit. So just try and stay grounded, keep working, keep writing. There'll be times when you think, well, why am I bothering with this? And if you don't do it for the love of the writing, you'll never stick with the career. Third piece of advice: be nice to everyone as much as you can. It's a small world. Be nice to other writers, seek them out if you can, get advice from them. If you can't, buy them a pint. Be nice to agents and publishers and editors, because they all move around, they all talk, everyone knows each other, and if anyone's just not nice to deal with, the word gets out pretty quick. So
love that. So the final question that we have is, we have obviously a lot of viewers from like America and all over the world. So where can people find your books? That's the question.
Awesome. You can buy Blackberry Bay or Blood Red City direct through the Arenda Books website. You can get them from, this one's not out till September in paperback. It's out on ebook now, so you can download that from wherever you get your ebooks, Amazon, Google, etc. You can get paperbacks of this one from the same place, Amazon, from any good indies. I think you can order it online from Smith's, Waterstones, wherever else. There's definitely copies in most Waterstones. So and then my backlist, these were in Waterstones. I don't know if there's still copies out there. Again, you can order it off the big Amazon if you're willing to take the risk of getting the Zodiac Killer sending your package to you, and or anywhere where good or otherwise books are sold.
Yeah, and what about, obviously, if we're interested in your, like, you as a person and as a writer, where can we sort of follow you? Where are you on social media and stuff like that?
Yeah, oh, cool, thanks. So my website is just www.rodreynolds.com. That's got a bit about me, links to my books, purchase links, all that kind of stuff. I'm on Twitter and Facebook. They're the only two social channels that I do, because I'm a Luddite and I struggle to keep up with them enough. So on Twitter, I'm at Rod_WR. On Facebook, I'm Rod Reynolds Author. I've got an author page. I've got a regular page. So if you search it out on Google, you'll find me. Always happy to chat. Got any questions that I didn't manage to get to tonight, please do fire them at me, or you just want to say hello, come say hi.
Brilliant. Well, that's been tonight's show. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Rod. So glad you agreed to join us tonight. It's been brilliant. I'd highly recommend that everyone who's watching, and anyone who watches in the future, checks out Black Reed Bay. You'll definitely enjoy it, especially if you're into your crime fiction. And as it says on the front there, Tim Baker, one of the greatest crime talents of his generation. So, believe in Tim, because Rod is the real deal. I went that way then, but you're on this side.
That's been getting me all night, though.
The different platforms. So please go and check him out. Obviously, we have a show next Wednesday for you, which is a fellow Arenda author, Rod. And I'm not going to try and pronounce his name, because he sent us a video. And Agate, who's not here tonight, said, "There's no way I'm pronouncing this name, because I won't be able to do it." Chris Agate has a terrible history of names anyway, and he's not very clear. I'm going to say Auntie. Do you know? Am I right with that, Rod? Because I could get one up. Yeah, Auntie. Do you know his surname? Can you say it?
Tuominen.
Auntie Tuominen.
I could be wrong there. I think it's Tuominen. Yeah, I think that's how you say it. But
so he's come on to talk to us about his book. His book is hilarious. So I can't wait to talk to him about that on Wednesday night. So please join us for that.
Big news today about Auntie and his book. Did you see that?
I did see that.
Yeah, I won't spoil it, but lots to talk about.
Yeah, we'll have a chat about that on Wednesday. But it's fantastic news for him. So we can't wait to chat to him about that.
I'll be watching that.
Yeah, but obviously, you guys from watching tonight, this is when I look in the camera, which I don't normally do. But thank you for joining us. I hope you have a great evening. It's been an absolute pleasure spending Friday with you. So we're going to do the little wave, and I will send us off.
Thanks so much, guys.
I can find it. Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. See you now. Bye.
Cheers.